Hello, this is Andy Meyer, and I'm bringing you Maze's End. Not played too often, but it's a good laugh, really fun to play, and usually people hate playing against it, so it helps for that as well. But yeah, it's just like standard old 16 fog effects. So you got your Druids Deliverance, Defend the Hearth, Fog, and Riot Control. 27 land base, 2 of each guild gate, 4 Maze's End, a forest, a plains, and an island. And then from there, you just got some like draw effects. You got Sphinx Revelation, you got Urban Evolution, allows you to play an extra land this turn. For Planeswalkers, just got 1 of each Jace. So you can go a different route and mill rather than win with the Maze's End, and your other Jace will get you card advantage. You can also draw a single card with your Jace every turn, so it's good for that as well. Prophet of Kuphix is a definite in this, where you're playing a very slow land game. You want to be able to make the most out of it every turn. So, untaps during your opponent's phase, you don't really have that many creatures to flash in. You got like Saruli Gatekeepers, look at you 7 life in a bind, but it's mainly just for untapping your lands for the very purpose of Crackling Perimeter. So enchantment, you tap an untapped gate you control, you deal 1 damage to the opponent. So that can get out of hand really quick. A lot of people would kind of underestimate it at first, but then they start getting zapped a lot and they hate their life. But yeah.
Crackling Perimeter is really interesting too, because if you play it later in the Maze's End game, and they realize that you're playing Maze's End, they might just start shocking themselves because they think, oh, there's no way for them to deal damage to me. They might deal 4-6 damage to themselves.
Exactly.
And then it makes your life just 2 taps away until they're dead.
It makes for a very good time. And while they're playing out all their stuff, they can't really connect with any combat damage. And then when they do have like a decent board state, I just Supreme Verdict and wipe it off the face there.
Yeah, and if anyone doesn't know the Maze's End deck, they just think it's all fog effects. Maybe they might forget about the Supreme Verdict unless you do it off a Jace.
Exactly.
And then so if they overextend, just like, oh, if I just connect once with this board state, I win, and then they just overextended with extra creatures they never needed.
Exactly. And it does happen more often than not. A lot of people get a bit cocky against it, saying, oh yeah, they don't see this deck very often, this is just a homebrew kind of thing. But it is a real deck, it just doesn't have the complete utilities that you'd want right now, but it makes sense.
The big thing with Worlds that Craig Westcoast won, he won with a White Weenie variant that you don't see too often, but usually the World sets the stage for the next standard season. Maze's End was a top contender. I think at probably close to 20 to 25% of all the pros that went there were playing some variation of Maze's End.
Yeah.
The meta, how it's shifted to a more mid-rangey control type of setup, the Maze's End seems to have a very, very good matchup versus all the control matchups.
Very much so, because they can't counter your lands. You're just building up your land base every turn, and you're just sitting on all these fog effects.
They can't wrath away your lands.
Exactly.
They can't Detention Sphere your lands.
Exactly, and control decks generally don't run Ember Swallowers.
Yeah, usually they tend to not. I mean, once they start developing if they start developing a board state with their single Aetherling, you have enough fogs to laugh at them.
Exactly.
Or
if they're running Mutavaults, that's also very good for them because they can be swinging in with that every turn, which is a very decent clock.
It's a 10-turn clock. You win on turn 11 if everything goes to plan. Am I correct on that?
I believe so. I think it can go faster if you get your Maze's End engine going.
If you get and then Prophet of Kuphix, I think speeds it up.
Very much so. Well, if you got your 1 Maze's End, you can speed up with your Prophet of Kuphix by 1 turn. But if you've got 2 Maze's End out, you can effectively like half that. Cut it in 3 even if you've got 3.
And you have a very specific card for. It looks like you have a specific card for the Mutavault. The Pithing Needle seems to stop that dead in its tracks.
Definitely. That and Xenagos. Xenagos has been very bad against this deck, as it turns out, because he's just making those tokens for 0 every turn that are swinging in with haste. So it is a very decent clock with those. And I found that Xenagos is definitely the worst thing that I have faced so far, but in my sideboard I've got some Dreadbores, I've got Detention Spheres, 1 in the main board, so it does help for that.
And being a Maze's End deck, you have access to all 5 colors,
yes.
So there's no card in Standard that's off limits to you.
Exactly, so when you're playing all the colors, you can play all the good stuff. It's very nice for that.
Though it is ban-oriented.
Very much so, yeah. You want
to be consistent, of course.
Of course, because, well, when you only have your gates, you have basically 8 of every type, so it does make for some inconsistencies, but it usually works itself out by turn 5, and if you're not dead by then, hey, you're in a good spot.
And most decks can't win by turn 5.
Exactly.
Actually, a lot of the aggro decks have a very hard time getting you down by turn 5. There's some few rogue decks that can win by turn 3, 4, but it's inconsistent and you rarely see them.
Exactly.
Though you may see the Boris deck become more popular since they got first and second. The latest Star City from the recording of this video had 2 Devotion to Boris decks, relatively Devotion to Boris decks get 1 and 2, and they're very good decks that I'm sure this deck would have a hard time against.
Exactly, that and burn decks. Because you don't really have any counters. Sure, I've got 2 negates in the sideboard, but if you're just getting burned with those, there's nothing you can really do. Spare having your Saruli Gatekeepers at the right time and your Sphinxes at the right time. So those decks are very good in this matchup as well.
So it has So this deck seems to be really, it seems really good versus all the control matchups, but very sketchy versus any of the aggro matchups.
Exactly.
So I say let's get this game started.